Krishna Sanghavi is with us. He's CIO Equities, Mahindra Manulife Investment Management. Krishna, good to have you with us here in our studios. Appreciate your time here.
Yeah, thanks, Prashant.
Just your first thoughts on what's been keeping them. Since the last time we spoke, we're down. We're down about 5% or so on the index. What's led to it, in your opinion? Is it sort of election jitters? Is it something else? I mean, even that debate is going on. Some believe it's not. It's just basically reallocation.
No, I think
to
the way
other
we
markets,
are right now, election is something already everybody likes to talk about. And honestly, we don't have enough data points either ways. Country with 97 crore people likely to vote, no one knows actually how the things will play out. So I think that's election which is perhaps noise. If you look from economy side, broadly things are okay.
I'm talking about flows, Krishna. Is that what is driving this large selling from FIIs?
No, I think that's a flow part, and that's where we need to be aware of how this regional allocation in money moves across markets. If you look at emerging markets, there is India, there is China, and there are quite a few other countries with and sometimes money moves from those set of investors where they're looking at a relative preference, because that's not a dedicated money to any markets. They are more emerging market investors, and for them that overweight, underweight, what we look at in Indian markets as a sector or market cap is what they exactly do on the country level. So those kind of changes will happen, and we've seen recently China has done pretty well, while Indian markets are let's say consolidating rather than not, whether it's linked to the pure election versus I think little bit more on flows, and that's what the global market connect possibly is all about.
A couple of days ago, there was this interview that Amit Shah had done, right, where he sort of spoke about the election verdict and how confident they are and how stock market investors should be looking at, looking at it positively, etc. If it plays out as the government is expecting, if it plays out in its entirety and the market moves up post the election verdict, how do you approach this market sectorally? Where do your preferences lie now?
Sure. So I think if you look at the broad picture in India, we have a nice opportunity of creating a manufacturing led growth for this particular decade. Whether you call it government policies on PLI, whether you call it maybe globally some sort of a need to de-risk away from China for some portion of the imports from China. Both combination makes us believe that we are in a situation where the manufacturing led growth is going to take over. Indian companies will cater to world or to our own customers by import substitution being the alternate word, and to that extent the next round of enablers which requires a manufacturing creation, which is either infrastructure, either the core economy like metals, oil, power. I think those things are more or less the macro picture in terms of what sectors are going to drive the economy better.
So metals, oil, power are the spaces that
manufacturing essentially, because manufacturing needs as a back support, right?
So manufacturing will be more to the tune of capital goods, the L&Ts of the world. Is
no,
that
actually,
the way to
manufacturing in a way is a very wide world, right? Pharma is also manufacturing certain things. Chemical is capital goods, equipment guys, as well as maybe FMCG, maybe auto. So manufacturing is a theme which India can export something, whether you can export a two-wheeler or or a phone or maybe chemicals. I think that's the macro theme of manufacturing across space. Capital goods are perhaps enablers to that, because you need to create manufacturing capacities in India, and that's where some of these cap good companies can come in to supply the equipments and get the projects on the ground.
Hi Krishna, good morning, good to see you. When you have to give it to this government in the last 10 years or so, the way public sector companies have been looked at, PSUs they have been looked at, they have been seen in better light. And the performance as well has improved out there. There's been a part of that re-rating that's taken place. Which are the themes you like from the public-owned companies as of now? The banks have done very well. You have defense stocks, you have railway-related names as well. What for you is top of the list?
Sure. So I think if you look at, again, PSU, incidentally, many PSUs are engaged in these core economic sectors. So you call it maybe, power, call it oil and gas, call it little bit of metals. They have a presence there. So that's a space which perhaps looks good. And the new theme, which is, which came up after the COVID really was a PLI and maybe Atmanirbhar through defense route. So defense is good. Infrastructure creation, logistics is perhaps, again, one more backbone required for manufacturing to really play out. Finally, let's look at some maybe a study of what happened to China. They also did all those right things of creating right side of ports and railway network and roads to finally enable a nice, exports capability. I think those things are, pretty much there.
The other area which we will see lots of players, lots of new IPOs, large ones actually, over the next couple of months. Go Digit in the insurance space is coming up with an IPO very soon.
Yeah.
A large player. In the context of Zomato, we were saying how Swiggy is going to come up with the issue.
Yeah.
We'll have I think Ola should be coming to the market, although I think they're waiting for the final approval from the regulator. How are you looking at some of these issuances, some of these large ones this year, Krishna? I'm assuming that bankers come to you and kind of ask you to participate in the anchor book, etc. What's the view? How have you approached IPO so far?
Yeah, sure. So I think if you look at any IPO company, basically there will be two thoughts on one, what the underlying business right now, and second is what valuation one looks at offering. So that's going to be the decision maker for each of these companies. But on a macro level, yeah, sometimes some of these IPOs are actually going to play a good role in both sides. One is capital availability to the right side of people, and second is some sort of easing of valuation, because net Indian market cap possibly goes up more because of the fresh listing. At the same time, the money needs to move from some existing sectors or stocks to some of these new companies. So that's where the rebalancing partly of valuations do happen, because finally, yeah, we need more investable companies in India, and that's going to help create a little bit comfort on valuations.
Okay. By the way, some stocks, since you're talking about the manufacturing theme, right? Just wanted to point out a couple of stocks. Hero MotoCorp is at a fresh 52-week high. That stock is now up about 20% this year, and it's come back in a big way after the recovery that we saw in its numbers, its earnings, and of course rural markets are also coming back. So Hero Motors at a fresh 52-week high. Couple of these other names, Havels is at a fresh 52-week high as well this morning. Polycab has been up and away. That stock is up 17% this year after having a phenomenal last couple of years. Polycab is the one I'm talking about. So Krishna, these spaces, right, within manufacturing, autos for example, looking pretty good. Most auto companies firing on all cylinders. Which are the pockets that you like here?
I think both passenger vehicles as well as two-wheelers are a nice sweet spot right now from a pure Indian market, let's say growth, and maybe over a little bit longer period, some of these companies can actually emerge as an export hub, because all these companies are trying to capture global customers, and maybe auto anchors which are in a way derivative of some of this growth in auto industry. So broadly, auto sector, yeah, positive, and it fits multiple themes: domestic consumption, export potential, both.
All right. What about the tech space? The verdict out there is split. Some are in favor of the large cap names, while some believe that the mid caps actually will outgrow the large cap names. So they rather go with the mid cap names. How are you placed out there?
Yeah, sure. So if you look at IT right now, one of the challenge in IT is that you having a situation where the underlying customers which are in the developed markets essentially are not having a great time on the growth front, or maybe the worries on the incremental growth is there, so which is creating some pressure on customer spend, and by default companies are currently under pressure in terms of the revenue growth rate. I think broadly you do expect typically large mid in a way to be equal, because the valuations also are reflecting where mid caps are far more valued than typical large cap IT companies.
Okay, just one final question before we let you go. Any threat to this market apart from elections? Of course, election verdict no one can predict, right? But apart from that, any threat to this market rally?
Yeah, I think broadly, the risk sentiments for markets lies outside India.
Okay.
So what's happening to the global markets, notably maybe US and Japan's central bank policies do matter to markets. So those that's going to create that money supply or the liquidity or the demand for risk assets. Otherwise, the pure India market may be something which we all know. It is the economy is good, but the route to participation through derivatives is a danger.
That you highlighted before.
Yeah, so that's really the worry. Too many people focused on 1 month and 2 month view, and that's a risk factor. But that's a sentiment risk in the Indian markets rather than fundamental risk.
Okay, we'll let you go on that note. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time and being here in the studio.